All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners business meeting this September 25th, 2014. Our county administrator will now take the roll call.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Commissioner Bernard.
Would you start at the other end?
You want me to start at the other end?
Are you here or not?
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Chair Ludlow.
Here, would you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further with our agenda, we're going to take a moment of silence in memory of Dr. Stephen Fritz, Portland City Commissioner Amanda Fritz's husband, who passed away in an automobile accident near Salem yesterday on Interstate 5. Our wishes and prayers and thoughts go out to the Fritz family and everyone who was touched by him over the years. So join me in a few minutes, please, a few seconds. Thank you. You know, something I said yesterday at the North Clackamas Chamber luncheon, and it's absolutely true. All during the time my children were being raised, I told them every day, tell your mother you love her, because there but for the grace of God go you or her before you ever see each other again. So think about that, and anybody out there listening, you know, tell somebody that you care about them today, because you never know what tomorrow brings, okay? All right, now, getting to the matter at hand, we have a presentation. Mr. Krupp.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm going to invite Bobcousy, who is our Director of Communications, up to the table. And we're going to recognize Mr. Kory Oman, who has won a national award as Telecommunicator of the Year. So Kory is joining us up at the table as well. Bob, why don't you go ahead and introduce the subject and introduce Kory to the board.
Good morning. I'm Bobcousy, Director of CCOM, the 911 Center for the county, and it's a pleasure to be here today. I was able to be with Kory recently at a national conference for the Association of Public Communications Officials, which is known as APCO. And we were at that conference, and Kory received the National Telecommunicator of the Year Award. Now, that entails an awful lot, and in a nutshell, I just want to express how professional Kory is. I have his 6-page nomination right here that APCO had to review. They also had to review quite a few others. And weeding through all of those, they realized that Kory certainly was deserving of this national award. And I wanted to read just a portion of this so you can get an idea, a flavor of exactly what Kory's like to work with. Kory displays empathy for coworkers, user agencies, and our callers. He leads by example and demonstrates qualities of the type of dispatcher he wants to work with. He epitomizes the quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Kory is reliable, communicates constructively, listens actively, is a valued participant in the organization, shares openly, cooperates with others, pitches in, is flexible, is a problem solver, continually shows commitment to the organization and his team, and treats others in a very respectful and supportive manner. I'm very proud to work with Kory, and I can honestly say if you ever have to call 911, he's the guy you want to talk to. I'm proud of our entire team, but Kory really has risen cream of the crop, if you will.
Nice.
I wanted to show his award that he received. It's quite impressive, and yeah, I don't want to drop it. Pretty valuable award, actually. But this is the APCO National Award that he received at the national conference this past year.
Congratulations, Kory. Commission, why don't we go down and get a photo op, and we have something to give to him as well.
That looked really nice on my desk.
Paperweight. I wanted to touch it, but I don't. Just. So before we have photograph, ladies and gentlemen. We have a Clackamas County certificate signed by all the commissioners that says, Kory Oman, for outstanding performance and service to Clackamas County and its citizens, CCOM Telecommunicator of the Year by the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials, and again signed by all the commissioners. So, Kory, congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you.
That looks great.
And now it's time for citizens' communication, and the man most aired on this channel would like to speak. I didn't say E-R-R-O-D, it's an A-I-R. And Mr. Les Poole is here.
Good morning. Les Poole, Clackamas County, via Gladstone. I got up before you announced me because I knew that my name was going to be called. The Oak Grove community is troubled. They're troubled about how the library process went. They've been involved at the end, and now it looks like we got something that might work for Gladstone Oak Grove Library. That situation has drug on a long time, and I do appreciate the county extending the time frame. I don't think anyone came to you expecting you to somehow come in and take over or wave a magic wand, but it was an issue that involved county citizens and Gladstone citizens, and so in a roundabout way, you folks were involved. The situation with Park Avenue is similar. I heard some things in the work session that didn't put my mind at ease, and they were simply mentioned that this is strictly an issue between the Elks, where their access is their safety concerns. The issue is between the Elks, a private property owner, and ODOT that owns the highway. Well, this is a major transportation project with federal funding, and the elephant in the room is the 500 car or 400 car, however many car parking garage that's being stuffed in there. That's what's changed the entire playing field. Obviously, ODOT does control that intersection, but there's a lot beyond that that the county has jurisdiction over. And when I heard that the county has no jurisdiction in the matter, I question that, but I'm not here to make a big legal argument. What I'm here to say is the county would do us all a favor by, as they've done with other issues, just send a letter to ODOT to try and take somewhat of a position on this. If I'm not correct, the permits for this came from ODOT, but the design was probably primarily done by county planning staff. And regardless of who planned it, it goes back to the fact that, as Dan Johnson said, they wrestled with this for 6 months. The reason they wrestled with it for 6 months is that it was a ridiculous location for a transportation hub that was never properly vetted. So my message to you is it goes back to TriMet that put you and we on the hook for millions, did a pathetic job of wiping out the neighborhood and the trolley trail, and now have created a problem that is only going to get worse. How are we going to redevelop this if the access is already pretty much maxed out? And we're going to end up with a right-in, right-out access to the Elks. It's inevitable because of the buses, the vehicles. There's going to be an absolute inability to pull out of the parking garage or the Elks and make a left into an island before you're jammed into Park Avenue So the logistics of what's happening isn't just about the Elks. And I would hope that the county would just take some action with the understanding legally you're not going to get deeply involved. And I'm more frustrated with this than you are, Chair Ludlow, so I appreciate how you're looking at me.
Well, I think I think some of your charges, I don't say need to be answered, but I think clarified, considering that most people watching this did not listen in on Tuesday's work session where we discussed this. We brought forward, I asked for, and we all agreed that we would receive more information on this, which we did, because it was brought forward by the likes of you and Thelma and others. Let's remember, again, the process, and I am a Milwaukee Elk, and I watched the process. The Elks had the right to negotiate for whatever they want. It was said that they were scared of Big Brother coming in and condemning their properties, and that's great. They didn't hire an attorney. They didn't hire an appraiser on the property they gave a conservation easement to. They didn't hire a broker to come in and talk to them about the value of the land. They did not insist that they needed another access, and they certainly could have done that, by the way, at the hearings officers' public hearings. As far as staff wrestling, it is a big project, and you know pretty much, I agree with you that the darn thing doesn't belong there, but it is there. Now, safety, right now, it was told to us, remember, right turn out, you mentioned that it would be permanent, and there's no indication, no requirement that that is so. And in fact, the right turn in, right turn out will exist for probably another week, maybe 10 days, and then people will have full right to go any which way out of the Elks access. There are hundreds of driveways similar to that on that stretch of highway running from Milwaukee to Oregon City that we all know very well. So it can suffice. There is a problem with the gradient level on the Elks Club to get back to the back of their property. But again, it was their right and responsibility to negotiate something better if that's what they wanted. They never demanded it. So the end result is, yet again, is that we are very concerned about that, and ODOT has arranged, and TriMet, to meet with Thelma, you, and anybody else. Agreed? So we have no power over this. We can have suggestions given forward. I understand that, but right now we are watching what will happen, especially in their participation with the local citizenry. Commissioner Bernard.
I just want to add that it was suggested that the county designed it. The county does not design ODOT facilities. They went through a process as everybody else does. The other thing is it right now it's under heavy construction. It's very difficult for somebody who's been driving that their entire life to figure it out. And I see people constantly driving, looking for driveways that either don't exist or are difficult to see because of there's no edge on the road. So I don't think you can blame anybody until the project is done and there's some history. Also, we heard that in the last 10 years, there's been one accident and one recently. And, you know, it's rare for anyone to respond to a single accident in 10 years and redesign and spend a whole lot of money. And sometimes that's very sad that that occurs. People have to die sometimes before things happen. But there is no history of accidents at that intersection. And yes, this will have an impact on it. And I can assure you we'll be watching it. We have, I'm trying to remember that Joe, Safe Communities program. He's an engineer who watches those intersections, keeps track of them, and then we respond when we see additional accidents occur or problems occur. We have engineers who go in and look at it and work with ODOT to fix those problems. I just don't think you can blame the project on these incidents, one incident and some close ones, while it's under construction, because, you know, people drive down that road at whatever speed they feel like driving. And I've heard it 100 times. And under construction, you have to be very cautious, so we'll watch it.
Commissioner Savas?
Well, I just want to convey to the speaker here and others that are watching that, you know, your concerns are more than duly noted. And I think that we'll be keeping, at least I will be keeping a close eye on how this project progresses. I think there's certainly the safety issue, and I know there's a number. We're aware of how many different groups there are. There's the people that worked on the committee to help design it as far as the aesthetics. There is the engineers, there is the TriMet agency, there's the Parks District, there's the county, there's ODOT, there's all the Elks property owners themselves, a number of folks, people up on the intersection of Park and Oatfield. There's a number of concerns in that area related to the construction and the safety. And you know, and I, for one, I'm just going to take advantage of this opportunity. I, for one, are waiting not only to make sure the safety issues are addressed and the end product meets safety issues, and we won't know that until somewhat of it is done, but we need to make sure that we have that leverage in the future should there be a safety issue. But to add to that, that was once, at least to me, one of I felt a gateway in our community. It was somewhat lush. It was kind of a natural settings. It had the trees, and it was kind of a nice, pleasant drive home. It was a nice gateway. And I know that a number of the members of the community council out there, the CPO and others, worked on a committee to make this the greenest, most beautiful structure, you know, in the region. And I'm waiting to see that to come to fruition, because as I'm watching all the steel and the concrete and the poles going up and the fences, which are, you know, chain link in some areas, the catenary that is going to be going up pretty soon, you know, it's not too appealing to the eye. It's not that lush green gateway that it once was. And I, for one, want to hopefully see where the beautiful aspects that we were somewhat, I won't say insured or assured, but that this would be the best-looking station or best-looking garage we've ever seen. So I'm waiting for that to see if that comes to fruition. And I expect...
excuse me, sir. Hold your breath.
Indeed. So there's a number of factors we'll all be looking for as far as performance of the project itself in that area.
Commissioner Smith?
I'm a little bit concerned on a legal, technical question. While we have had people come and say, oh, this is harmful to the Elks, and they may be members of the Elks, but I've yet to hear from the powers that be at the Elks or the elected representatives who signed this agreement that they're concerned. So that may be a legal, technical situation as we move forward on this, Mr. Magor.
Commissioner Schrader?
I did have a conversation with Thelma about this, actually. We were working together during the events that were happening at the Lockfest. And I was very concerned. She described to me how she almost got into an accident. And, of course, she's one of my favorite people, so I was concerned. I was glad we had a discussion about it. I kind of tend to agree with Commissioner Savas here that let's wait and see what happens. At this point, you have to determine if it really is the construction that's the problem that's causing it, or again, there's a major safety issue. What she described to me was if they had just put a road, kind of an access road, in the back of that property, it probably would have solved the problem at this point. So I still remain concerned about it. The reality is, though, unfortunately, since it is a state highway, we can advocate for changes that we want to see happen. Okay, and that's what we can do. And I, for one, am still concerned about it, and drove by there the other day just to see what it was like. And it's not. The construction makes it more unsafe right now, I think. And like I said, we'll wait and see. If it continues to be a problem, I think we're going to have to be strong advocates for some changes there.
Commissioner Bernard?
One thing we can do is advocate for slower speeds. But that takes some time with ODOT. So if that concern appears to be realistic, we can ask for a lower speed. You'll notice on McLaughlin in Milwaukee, the police department loves it.
Oh, I slow down there.
But that was demanded by the city to slow people down so it was safer to cross across the street. But it took about 2 years. And Lake Road, which we lowered the speed, took 5. So we might want to talk about, do we want to start advocating for that right away?
Well, as said by the commissioners, we will watch it. Let's be patient and watch till something happens. But whatever we desire will have to be the result of measurements and outcome. And so we'll have to give it a little time as it goes together. Speaking real quickly to ODOT, ODOT really isn't involved in this thing. As soon as they give free access, whether not right turn in, right turn out, they're out of this equation. The Elks front entrance will return to be whole, like they always were. The question is TriMet, and the western portion, which they do have a hammerhead, it's called, a roadway in design on the very west side of their property that only leads about halfway towards the Elks property. If push came to shove and there were extreme problems there, probably the solution would be to ask that they extend that and probably financially participate in the same, usually, all the way to the Elks Club. But we have to wait and see what happens. But thank you. Look, Les, what you've done, you've got the commission totally talking about this, right? Well done. And Marianne Moore is up.
Good morning, Marianne Moore from Gladstone. Sorry I was a little late. I didn't get to hear all of what Les said. But I mentioned last week that we'd been following this all along. And I want to show you this lovely picture that they have of the Green Gateway. And I went back through, because I have all of these things, and tried to see what they were saying they were going to do. Well, basically, they don't say much of anything about the Oatfield Road, Park Avenue area. And that's the one that is just a total disaster now. And I don't see any way it's going to be corrected with what they're doing, because they're going to be funneling people down from Milwaukee on this crooked little road that ends at Park Avenue for the light. And it is just a disaster. I asked last week if any of you had been over there and looked at it. I'm sure Paul has, and like I said before, none of you live around there. You're not impacted by it. Have you seen it, John? You're looking at me like...
Of course I have.
When? How recently?
Oh, I have to give you a date and time, Mariana, or we just take my word for it?
2 days ago I was there.
Yeah, it's been,
okay.
Been almost a week.
And you're not disturbed by that?
It's under construction.
It's also a county project, I believe,
No.
because it's in the county. It's not part of ODOT's
Yes, it is.
preserve. I mean, ODOT's down in McLaughlin. I'd like an explanation of who designed that. It isn't in here. It doesn't say what they're going to do then. Like I say, they've made a lot of changes since they came out with this final draft, supposedly, of what they're doing. They're changing it every day. And I just want some accountability from the county, particularly because that's a county street, county road that's Oatfield, I believe. Is that incorrect?
That's correct.
Okay, so how involved are you guys and the county in what's going on there?
That design was a conglomerate of both TriMet and our county people's design. With that much traffic going through there, and you know, historically, I do, having grown up there, how that is well known for heavy and dangerous traffic. I mean, if you're going up Park till you meet Oatfield, Mariana, and you ever wanted to take a left, you better be very, very careful if you want to pull out from there. Now, you might note that last week the county agreed to pay for full signalization there, which is really the right way to go. We all know that one particular man named Dan there and his property has, it's always, I think, a mystery to some property owners about where their line really starts. And there isn't much left of his front yard, so to speak. It is not the prettiest thing, but considering the environment, i.e. how those roads come together and the traffic, I don't know what more we could do to plan for this. Now, again, our professionals were involved in this. Certainly, the commission takes responsibility for everything that happens in the county. But there was opportunities for public meetings on this, hearings. There are opportunities for people to remonstrate about how it was coming together. The design has changed somewhat, and certainly the addition of additional money has put into this. But those were approvals down the line from this commission. And, you know, I don't know, I do know, I looked at the plans on how this will look like in the end, and it's a busy, busy area. That's all I can say. Commissioner Savas.
So this does have a little bit of history because when this was before the previous commission as to what some of the safety improvements may or may not be, and when we were negotiating with TriMet as to some of those amenities and addressing some of those safety issues, there was obviously a limit on how many resources or how much money could be applied to this and how much pedestrian improvements, which this project encourages and the agency pushing the project encourages, is multimodal pedestrian traffic access to transit. Some of those dangerous S-curves, as you know, going down over there don't have much in the way of safe harbor for pedestrians and when a car comes through there. And the challenge was, in all honesty, is that in order to make that those pathways wide enough that it required basically eating away at the property. And what you're seeing there at some of those properties right now is they're losing a lot of their front yards for safety improvements. And had that really been done all the way through those S-curves, some of those properties would be deeply impacted. So that was the compromise, and they decided they only would go partially into some of that S-curve, or just at the beginning of that S-curve. So unfortunately, those for safety have been, their yards and front yards have been compromised, and had they been even deeper through that turn and down the way, even more would have been compromised. So it is a balance. As I mentioned last week, you know, my recollection was this was a county project prior to light rail ever coming to that area. And even on our consent agenda today is approval, and even on the listing here is the showing of that project on our transportation system plan as a needed project, but we never had the money. So TriMet, because of the project, is now funding a substantial part of that because of the safety improvements and access there, and we'll be adding a couple hundred or $100,000 or so, $130,000, I believe, to that project to add the signal part of it, which was what we will put there to enhance that even further yet. But yeah, it's terrible to travel through there. I drive through it just about every day. And I'm hoping the end product is palatable, but I know that some of the property owners there that I've spoken to are looking at leaving and moving because they just don't like the end product. And that's unfortunate. But I think part of the problem is sometimes when I see neighborhoods erupt because of a particular development, part of that is put forth by growth, and when sometimes it is density related, then those issues, I'm getting off subject here, but those issues come through our 2040 comp plan and our need for density as the greater powers in Metro and the counties have agreed on previously. So we're stuck sometimes with the end result.
I never thought they could do anything on that S-curve. I mean, there's no way that you could do something there without really destroying things. But it's getting to there and getting to the Elks Club and stuff. In my past, I would go to Park Avenue because I lived just off of Oatfield. I'd go to Park Avenue and come down to the light to make the right turn into the Elks. Well, the whole thing is it's just so torn up, and it's not, I can just see them backing up whole way, and we won't have any way to get out and around that once you get, just finishing it is not going to be the answer. Thank you.
As in the case previously about the Elks portion and the highway there and Park Avenue West, let's let this thing get finished, and we will make some observations, and we have professional staff, as Commissioner Bernard mentioned, watching incidents on that area, and I'm sure we will react appropriately should that time come. Thank you. And now, it is time for the business of the commission, which is all this kind of business anyway, but it's time for public hearings. Is that correct, Mr. Krupp?
That's correct, and your first hearing of the morning is to consider second reading of ordinance number 05-2014 that would amend chapter 2.05 of the county code pertaining to personnel and procedures for Clackamas County employees. And I will ask Christina Thacker from the County Counsel Office to give you a report.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Christina Thacker. I'm an Assistant County Counsel in the Office of County Counsel, and I'm here on behalf of the Department of Employee Services to present to you the second reading of Ordinance 05-2014 regarding the 2.05 section of the code, which relates only to personnel policies and procedures for county employees. There are several amendments that were presented to the board during a study session in July, and then the first reading was held 2 weeks ago on September 11th. The amendments contain changes that reflect changes in Oregon law and contain other updates that have been requested by management.
That's it? Christina,
That is it.
Congratulations. That was good stuff. All right, do we've read the material, or certainly glanced over because it's very repetitive in a lot of ways. Commissioners, do you have any clarifying questions of the presenter? All right, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask if anyone wishes to speak on this matter. There being none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I move we read ordinance number 05-2014 by title only.
Second.
So the motion's made by Commissioner Smith and seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Any further discussion? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 5-0. So I'll ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
Okay, this is Ordinance 05-2014, and ordinance amending Chapter 2.05, Personnel, Policies, and Procedures of the Clackamas County Code.
All right. So I'll ask for a motion to adopt the ordinance.
I move we adopt ordinance number 05-2014, amending chapter 2.05 of the county code, personnel and procedures for Clackamas County employees.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Schrader, seconded by Commissioner Bernard. Is there any further clarification or questions or discussion? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye. Passed 5-0. I'll announce the board will adjourn as the county commissioners and convene as the Service District Number 5 board for this next items.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this next item is a public hearing to consider what is really a series of board orders to form street lighting assessment districts on behalf of the Service District Number 5. And I'm going to ask Wendi Coryell to provide to you a staff report. We do have a PowerPoint presentation to go along with the report.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Wendi Coryell, and I represent Clackamas County Service District Number 5, which is the district responsible for street lighting. And we do street lighting for the unincorporated areas of Clackamas County and for the city of Happy Valley and Damascus. This morning I'm bringing these items before you as the Board of Directors for Clackamas County Service District Number 5. Street lighting is required as conditions of approval for all new residential, commercial, industrial, and multifamily developments within the Clackamas County area and the cities of Happy Valley and Damascus. And street lighting can also be installed via the district's petitioning process. Prior to presenting the areas for your consideration, I'd like to ask that you remove area 09-14, which is the Rock Creek Subdivision. This is number 6 on your agenda. We'd like to remove this due to some discussion that we still have to have with the city of Happy Valley on the style of street lighting and the rate. We've changed the style and rate for that area based on some discussion we've had with them. There's a Tetra style light that they'd like to go with in place of the Cobra style we originally had discussed. So with the removal of this, there will now be 11 areas for you to consider. 6 are in the unincorporated area of Clackamas County and 5 are in the city of Happy Valley. Okay, the first item for your consideration is Area 2412, which is the ODOT building modification. It's an alteration of a building on 9200 Southeast Lawnfield Road in Clackamas. We'll use Cobra-style lights, as you can see in the picture, on new aluminum poles. This will come at a rate D at $1.21 per frontage foot per tax lot each year. The second area for your consideration is Area 14-13, which is the Cambria Creek subdivision. This is a new 10-lot subdivision on 14225 Southeast 139th Avenue in Clackamas. We'll use Acorn lights on new fiberglass poles, and this will come at a rate J at $1.18 and 8 cents per tax lot each year. And there are no remonstrances received for this one or the ODOT building modification. Area 2413, the Ferris partition is the next item. And this is a 2-lot partition on 8749 Southeast Margie Way in Happy Valley. We'll use Cobra lights on existing wood poles, and this will come at a rate B at $48.37 per tax lot each year. And again, no remonstrances were received. Next area for your consideration is Area 05-14. It's McDonald's Restaurant. It's a new commercial restaurant on Southeast Sunnyside Road in Happy Valley. We'll use Cobra lights on aluminum poles, and this will come at a rate D at $1.21 per frontage foot per tax lot each year, and no remonstrances were received. And the next item for your consideration is Area 10-14, which is the Terrelon subdivision. This is phase 1 of this subdivision. It's a new 78-lot subdivision near Sunnyside Road in Happy Valley. We'll be installing Tetra lights on Shepherd's Crook poles. This will come at a rate R at $253.95 per tax lot each year. And again, no remonstrances were received. The next area is 1614, which is Josephine Estates subdivision. This is a new 36-lot subdivision on 14200 Southeast Oakwood Avenue in Clackamas. We use Cobra lights on fiberglass poles, and this will come at a rate C at $67.82 per tax lot each year, and no remonstrances were received. Next area is Area 26-14, Crestview Townhomes. This is a new 70-unit townhome near Highway 224 and Eckert Lane in Happy Valley. We'll use shoebox lights on new fiberglass poles. And this will come at a rate H at $88.86 per tax lot each year, and there's no remonstrances received. Next area for your consideration is Area 31-14. This is a Safeway distribution center. This is a modification to an existing distribution center on Evelyn Street in Clackamas. We'll use Cobra lights on existing wood poles, and this will come at a rate D at $1.21 per frontage foot per tax lot each year, and there's no remonstrances received. Area 34-14, Terrelon East subdivision. This is a new 40-lot subdivision near Sunnyside Road in Happy Valley. This is the second phase of this subdivision. We will use Tetra lights on Shepherd's Crook poles, and this will come to rate R at $253.95 per tax lot each year. There's no remonstrances received. Next area of your consideration is Area 29-14, which is the WIC partition. This is a 3-lot partition on 4519 Southeast Nafe Road in Clackamas. And we'll be using Cobra lights on existing wood poles. And this will come at a rate B at $48.37 per tax lot each year. And there's no remonstrances received on that one as well. And last item for your consideration is Area 13-14, which is industrial buildings. These are 2 new industrial buildings that are located on 16121 Southeast 122nd Avenue in Clackamas. And we'll be using Cobra lights on existing wood poles. And this will come at a rate D at $1.21 per frontage foot per tax lot each year. And there were no remonstrances received for that as well. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioner Bernard.
So my question on the example of $283 per year, You know, these lights, you know, eventually they'd be paid for at that price. You would think that at some point it far exceeds the value of the lights or maintenance. Is there a point that is reached where that tax is no longer charged?
Well, this is the electricity rate for those lights, and built into each electricity rate is the overall maintenance cost of that. So this covers the replacement costs at the end of the life of the light and the pole.
So instead of having meters, they just base it on the light.
Correct.
Wow. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, for the public that may be looking in on our agenda itself, please note there are 13 items. There is no number 1, and as explained by Wendi, number 6 was removed. So there are 11 items. Do the commissioners have any more clarifying questions of the presenter? All right, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone wishes to speak on any of the 11 assessment areas presented. There being none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I move we approve the board order for the 11 assessment areas within Clackamas County Service District Number 5 as presented today.
Is there a second? All right. Motion made by Commissioner Bernard, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Any further discussion? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, approved 5-0. Now I'll announce the board will adjourn as the Service District Number 5 Board and reconvene as the County Commission for the remainder of the meeting. It is time for the consent agenda. I'll ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Okay, the consent agenda. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Estacada School District for the Teen Mentor Program. Approval of amendment number 1. Oh, and these are under Health, Housing, and Human Services. So number 2 is approval of amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement with the Workforce Investment Council of Clackamas County for specialized workforce services. Approval of modification number 2 to contract 29297 with Ride Connection to provide funding for rides provided by members of the Clackamas County Transportation Consortium. Under the Department of Transportation and Development, approval of amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement between the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, Clackamas County, and North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District to fully acculate signals at Park and Oakfield intersection. Under Business and Community Services, a resolution authorizing Clackamas County Parks to apply for the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department County Opportunity Grant for playground replacement and construction. Under Elected Officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. Approval to submit a grant application for the Victims of Crime Act 2014-2015 non-competitive extension grant for the District Attorney's Office. Under Emergency Management, approval of intergovernmental agreement, Personnel Act assignment agreement with the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Under County Counsel, we have a board order declaring that the Gladstone Election Building is no longer needed for public use and the public's interest would be furthered by the sale of this property. Under North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, approval of amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement between the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, Clackamas County, and the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District for fully acculated signals at Park and Oakfield intersection. And that concludes our consent agenda.
All right, thank you. Any commissioners wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? I'll ask for a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
A motion made by Commissioner Bernard, seconded by Commissioner Savas to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, approved 5-0. And now it's time for, I know the always desired by the public, County Administrator Update.
All righty, I have several items. The first is, as I'm really pleased to announce this item, our Public Health Division of the Department of Health, Housing, and Human Services has just received national accreditation through the Public Health Accreditation Board. This is a national program that is jointly sponsored and supported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. It involves what is a rigorous review of our programs and our local public health providers to see that we meet or exceed a specific set of what would be quality standards and measures. And I got to say, this is really a significant accomplishment for Clackamas County. We are the 4th county in the state of Oregon to receive this honor, and we are one of only 54 counties nationwide to have been accredited through the Public Health Accreditation Board. And so my congratulations to Cindy Becker, our director, and her staff in the Public Health Division for their fine work in being able to achieve this particular accomplishment.
How many counties are there?
Yeah.
How many counties are there?
In the country?
Yeah.
I can't tell you, but I'll get that for you. It's several thousand, so.
I'll look it up while you're.
Yeah, all righty. I also want to remind and invite Sandy River area residents and property owners to attend the Flood of Information event that we've got scheduled for this Saturday at the resort at the Mountain. The event is scheduled from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and county staff will be on hand to provide updates on projects and help residents prepare for potential winter events for this coming winter season. Another piece of good news, the 36 pit fire, which started on September 14th, it consumed a number of state and federal resources, but it also consumed a number of commitments and resources from Clackamas County. And I'm happy to hear that as a result of the governor's declaration of conflagration and a FEMA fire management assistance declaration, we are now eligible for reimbursement for at least a portion of our costs, overtime costs, and some of the other expenditures that Clackamas County made in its efforts to respond to this particular fire situation. Happy to do that. We're in the process now of collecting that particular data so we can make the request for reimbursement. And then finally, I wanted to let you know that you will all recall that when the board approved the ambulance contract with AMR, one of the requirements was that the company provide the county with an annual audited financial statement. And I just received a copy of that statement on my desk just a couple of days ago. I will be sending you each a copy for your own review. Happy to talk with you about the contents of the report, and if the board would like to schedule a discussion, we can certainly do that. So that's my report.
Good.
So there are 3,086 counties in the U.S., and you can have up to 62 counties per state, which I'd never heard of.
Me either.
I think they call them parishes too, some places.
Yes, they vary in what they call them.
So it is time for Commissioner Communication, and we'll start out with Commissioner Schrader.
Great. Well, thank you, Chair. I think we had a successful day yesterday as a commission. We were at the North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce, where we were peppered with questions, and I think it was a very successful opportunity to let the citizens of our county know that we do very good work here together and are doing the business of the county. So kudos to everybody. I think it went very, very well for all of us. I wanted to also let you know that yesterday I went to the last Wednesday market of the Oregon City Farmers Wednesday Market. From here on out, they'll have specialty markets at certain times, and you can pick up a bookmark that gives you the actual dates of that market. So that was kind of fun to go down there for the last time this fall and get some fresh produce and flowers. Speaking of produce and flowers, I had an opportunity last week to visit with Fiala Farms in the Stafford area, and they are a 100-year farm Same family has owned it for over 100 years. I haven't had an opportunity to tour their site, look at their facility, and see how they are doing really small farm marketing agriculture, and they've been very successful at it. I'd also like to mention a couple of things about poverty. We had a planning meeting yesterday about poverty, and I think it was very enlightening for us. It showed us areas in this county where there are pockets of poverty, and in relation to that, we had two things on the consent agenda I wanted to mention from Human Services, and that is that part of the way out of poverty is getting people jobs. And today we approved a contract between our Workforce Investment Council of Clackamas County and our Community Solutions folks. They are actually the folks who worked with barriered workers. And these are folks that may have issues with joblessness. They may be public housing residents, people leaving the correctional system, managing a mental illness, and people who, for one reason or another, are long-term unemployed. Part of what Workforce does and what we do best within the county is work with barriered workers. And then, of course, we have a whole other bunch of folks that we work with who may not have these barriers, but the county specifically does a fabulous job with this particular demographic, which helps people move out of poverty. The other piece is we talked about yesterday when we were talking about poverty is this issue of transportation. And that, and I was listening to NPR this morning as I was coming in, and indeed, one of the biggest problems people face is how close they are to work or how do they get to work. And one of the things we approved today was a transportation, reaching people in senior center-based transportation services to assist older residents, disabled county residents in meeting their transportation needs. So that remains a barrier as well, making sure people can get to their job and get to their work. So the county is doing work on both of those issues. And with that, one last announcement. The Veterans Services Committee is meeting this afternoon, and we're coming up with a framework to assess the Veterans Covenant that we had prepared back in 2010. We're going to reassess that covenant. We're going to come up with assessing what we have done and what we still need to do, and we're working on having an event to renew that covenant. So, thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Commissioner Savas.
Well, I have about 5 things I'd like to talk about today, but I won't cover all 5. I'll just cover a couple of them. It was kind of related. I was it's kind of related to one of the earlier speakers with regards to, the impacts of growth. And I went to the Jennings Lodge CPO meeting on Tuesday night, and they are quite concerned about a potential development that's going to take place there where 73 homes will be placed on a lot that is heavily treed and has some, apparently some 100-year-plus old trees on the lot, and a substantial, again, it's heavily treed. And, these a lot of these trees will be lost by virtue of placing these homes on there. And the neighborhood's quite passionate about the trees and very upset at the county. And, as a neighbor who lives in the community, I express, shared some of my concerns as well about, what's caused this to happen? How do we go from an area, a nice suburb, to areas where when density becomes in someone's community's backyard, suddenly they don't like it, they don't want it. But all along, sometimes when it's happening elsewhere, they're less concerned, and that's natural. So I explained to them, really that the density, in an effort to, Senate Bill 100 and all the language in the 24 comp plan and what Metro was created from a land use standpoint to implement, that we are living the consequences or a result of those efforts to hang on to as much and protect as much farmland and keep the area as beautiful as we can where we can. But, the suburbs are part of that beauty, and the suburbs are really part of the tree canopy, and I'm quite sensitive to that. But I exchanged a couple emails, and I'll be continuing to do that today, actually. Why isn't the county doing more about this? And I think it's similar to other activities. Well, there's no development. We have not received an application, so we have no power. at this point in time. Until we actually have an application, we cannot ask for all the required material. We cannot force a developer, potential developer, or the current property owner to do something until they actually apply. And until they apply, our hands are tied. And I'll try to express that once again to some of the community, but some of the members of the community. But I just, it is quite apparent that I don't think people realize what the build out of the 24 plan looks like. And because it becomes more metropolitan and we lose more and more of those amenities, whether they're trees or some of our lush, nice neighborhoods, until they realize that, it's probably too late. And I think some of those realizations are cropping up in a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of communities around the county. And I think we do value property rights. We do value the beautiful area we live, but I don't think, I think a lot of us who live in Oregon live here because it's a beautiful state, and when we see some of that beauty being compromised in our backyards, it's kind of upsetting, and I share that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Commissioner Bernard.
What's interesting about the FEMA designation on the 36 Pit Fire is that Washington requested the same on an area that 350 homes were destroyed and were denied. So I think it's kind of strange that Clackamas County got that. So the covenant was something that no one knew where it was but me. I had it in my office. The Veterans Covenant. I think we could do a better job of knowing that no one even knew it existed for a while there. I signed it, the original covenant, back, I believe I was mayor or I was just elected as a commissioner. So when we have a covenant like that, it should be prominently displayed somewhere, not where no one can find it. I mean, it doesn't mean much if you sign something and no one knows where it is or what it was.
Jim, isn't it in your office?
It was in my office.
Yeah.
What were you doing holding it back from us?
There are a lot of people who signed that covenant. My version was this big. The covenant was this big, and I don't know where that is. I bet you nobody knows where that is. So we could do a better job making sure we do that. The trees and the houses, interesting story. I was here. Tree ordinance, people wanted a tree ordinance. Did we catch a lot of hell over that? It was a terrible, terrible battle. When it's somebody else's trees, they don't care. But when it's in their neighborhood, I want a tree ordinance. Clackamas County stopped them from cutting down those trees. I actually voted no on that tree ordinance. I was the only one. You know why? It wasn't tough enough. And when you have a big project like this, there has to be some ability for the county to demand something to save trees. I mean, the argument's always been that, I can't build this extra house because I got to save this tree or I got to change this or that. So, because I got to save this tree. At the same time, trees do add value to the community. There's no question about it. Where I lived in Wilsonville, they saved all the trees they could, these giant oak trees, and they left all this open area. Believe me, we paid for it. We paid for having those trees. And they went to great effort. So I don't know whether I want to address this problem and have that battle reoccur again and have the same people say they want it, and the next day, remember when they built light rail? They're hugging those trees, don't cut those trees down. Exact same people testified against the tree ordinance. So what do you want? The community needs to decide what they find valuable and what they don't, and they need to get behind one or the other, not battle one, fight the other, or support the other one. That just doesn't make sense. And I don't know, were you here when we did the tree? I was not. Yeah, you were lucky. Because there was a community group that got together. There were those who wanted and those who didn't. They came up with a compromise, and then it was an avalanche. That was
2010.
2010. It was a disaster. I When I first got to Milwaukee, they were looking at a tree ordinance. First thing I pulled from the agenda, because unless the community is fully behind it, it's just a nasty, it's almost as bad as dog barking. Anyway.
It's probably worse.
Good times.
I love this. I love
So I do have an announcement.
Yes.
That the city council candidates for Milwaukee and Gladstone will be holding a debate 2 p.m. Saturday, October 4th at Milwaukee Elks Lodge. Please drive safely with getting there. The address is 13121 Southeast McLaughlin Boulevard. And I guess, well, this is a historic event. It's never occurred that two city, this kind of debate occurred in the Milwaukee Gladstone area. So be sure and attend, and I'm sure the Elks would appreciate signing up and becoming a member while you're there.
That's a good point. Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to talk about trees, but in a little different framework, specifically the fire in Estacada. I want to thank our firefighters. I know a couple of them personally for doing what they do, and it is hard work. And I want to thank the efforts of the people who evidently tried to put out the fire when it happened. And I think a 40-man crew and a couple of helicopters could not dampen the fire. What does that say about the conditions? The conditions were very hard. The terrain was steep, if not humanly impassable in some areas. It was tinder dry forest that has not been managed. It's just been allowed to go whatever way it would. And it talks about the interface between urban and rural forestry. Why do we have Forest Service land that's not managed so close to where people live and so close to a town that I would submit the town was there before the forest got to the level that it did? Because if you go back in time 100 years, that there was probably not that much of a forest there, but because of our preservation efforts, the Endangered Species Act, and a lot of the inability from our federal government to act on this issue has put, I believe, this town in danger. We're not out of it yet. I was so thankful for the rain. Saturday when the fire picked up, I sat on my back porch and watched this huge explosion of smoke coming toward my house. And it's very thick smoke there. And it is a health hazard. Luckily, like I say, we have rains, and I appreciated Clackamas County's effort to go in and help. And if nothing else, it was a wonderful opportunity for us to exercise and mobilize some of our emergency services to see how well we can interact with other government agencies. And I think it was a learning experience for all of us. To get the communication system up and running and then actually exchange information in a timely manner is very challenging. And this is, as far as a natural disaster is concerned, not that large in the big scope of natural disasters. So I think we're learning a lot from this. We can implement some best practices as we move forward in this. And like I say, I'm just thankful that it's not worse than it is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. This last Saturday, I did go to the fire briefing in Estacada, and you know, everybody was represented, all the entities that have been fighting this fire, and there are a lot of citizens. I want to commend Nancy Bush for the good job she's done in disseminating information to us as she received it on this fire. Tomorrow I'll be going as a representative of this commission to the Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization meeting. It's particularly apropos considering that we've had the most recent disaster of that type, and Nancy and I will be giving a briefing to that organization. Yesterday, I'm not an advocate of light rail, by the way. In case anybody ever thought that I was, I am not. It's too linear, and it depends on bus traffic. And by golly, if you look at it, as been said before, how many buses you could buy that can go anywhere on any road for the same price they paid for this rail, it's staggering. But beyond that, they did build a bridge on the Willamette River, and so we were invited to go down and see that bridge. It is a very beautiful bridge, a very costly bridge, but a very beautiful bridge, and it will also allow pedestrians and bicyclers on it too. So it was interesting and again, kind of almost like a work of art. I was pleased to be invited to give the opening remarks to the Oregon Juvenile Department Directors Conference on Monday, hosted in Clackamas County. And again, Ellen Crawford is our Director of Juvenile Services and does a fine job not only hosting that type of event, but also in intervening in young people's lives early enough so that it doesn't cost us much, much more down the line with prison incarceration. The North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce luncheon yesterday, where we all attended, is actually going to be televised. It'll be on our cable channel, so be sure to look for that. And finally, I think the public knows that the board authorized me to sign on a 5-0 vote the declaration of an emergency. But what was important about that I think the board doesn't know is it says, upon this declaration of a state of emergency, the undersigned official, that was me, is empowered to assume centralized control of and have authority over all departments and offices of the county. So
I vote to appeal.
I've made a few changes that I'll hand over to Mr. Krupp here, and I want these implemented right away.
Yeah, stop the forest fire, will you, John?
Oh, the power. What's that saying? Is that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. All right. There being no further silly business. Oh, wait, yes, thank you, Tootie. There is. The last town hall for 2014, in all probability we will continue this in the following calendar year, will be held at Happy Valley City Hall, 16,000 Southeast Misty Drive, Happy Valley. And so this is hosted by the Happy Valley Business Alliance, and again, it's November 12th, 2014, from 7 to 8:30 p.m. We encourage everybody to come. The last one was sparsely attended. I had to go out and push people around. I know that's my reputation anyway, to make them come forward and talk. So I would hope we get a lot of attendance. And, this is an opportunity to, in a much more relaxed setting, ask commissioners questions or clarifications that people think are germane. All right, now, there being no further business before this commission this day, this meeting is adjourned.